My dad erased all traces of mom after she died, so I cut him off. And when he showed up begging, I gave him the coldest goodbye ever. This all started when I was 14. My mom passed away from cancer. I was really close to her, like, really close. We used to do everything together, cook, watch movies, talk about random stuff. She was just the kind of person you wanted to be around, you know? When she died, I felt like my whole world just kind of fell apart. It was like everything went quiet. My dad, Robert, wasn't really there for me. He was distant, like emotionally shut off. I get that everyone grieves differently, but man, he was moving fast in ways that didn't sit right with me. I'm not trying to sound dramatic or anything, but I swear it felt like he was already over it just a few months later. By the time 3 months had gone by, he was dating Laura. I say dating because I'm pretty sure they were together before my mom even passed. I don't have solid proof or anything, but trust me, it was weird. The way they acted around each other, even when mom was sick, just felt off. I'd hear them laughing late at night in the kitchen while my mom was in bed, not doing well at all. It never sat right with me. It was just this vibe, like he was checked out from us before she was even gone. Laura was already spending nights at our house by the time 4 months had passed. I didn't have time to grieve, let alone wrap my head around why this random woman was suddenly part of our lives. It was like my dad couldn't wait to move on, and honestly, I hated it. She'd show up, acting all sweet and over the top, trying to make small talk with me, cooking breakfast like she was already part of the family. I just kept thinking, who the hell does she think she is? It's like, lady, I don't even know you. Here's the part that really messed me up. They announced their engagement on my 15th birthday. Yeah, my birthday. Picture this, I'm sitting there, kind of just going through the motions, trying to make the best out of my day, and then, boom, they hit me with, we have something exciting to share with you. I didn't even have a second to process it before my dad's grinning like a fool and Laura's all, we're getting married. I don't even remember thinking about it. I just stood up, grabbed the cake they'd gotten me, and flipped it onto the floor, frosting everywhere. It was the only thing I could do in the moment to show how pissed I was. I walked out the door and didn't come back for 3 days. They had the nerve to act surprised when I bailed like that. They seriously didn't get why I was upset. I mean, come on, dude, you announce your engagement to the woman you've been dating for a few months on my birthday, less than a year after my mom died? That's messed up, right? After disappearing for a few days and crashing at my friend's house, I eventually had to come back. I guess they were about to report me as a missing person or something. The police were probably close to knocking on my door, so I figured it was time to face the music. When I got back, they tried to act like nothing happened, like we were just going to brush the whole thing under the rug and move on. But things didn't go back to normal, not for me. It got worse. They went out of their way to erase my mom from the house. I'm talking about her pictures, her clothes, even random things like the mug she used to drink from, gone. One day, I came home from school, and the place looked like she never even existed. I lost it when I saw all of her stuff gone. I ran up to my room and found that they'd boxed up what little I had left of hers. Some of her personal stuff was just gone. When I asked where they put it, Laura had the nerve to say something like, it was time to move on. Move on? Seriously? It hadn't even been a year since she died, and they were already acting like I was supposed to just forget about her. I fought them hard on this one. I kept what little I could find, her necklace, a few photos I'd hidden away, and some letters she wrote me when I was younger. Everything else was either thrown out or packed into storage somewhere I didn't have access to. Then came the call her mom thing. Oh man, this is the part that really set me off. Laura and Robert started pushing this idea that I should be calling her mom, like that was just supposed to be a normal thing I'd adjust to. I wasn't having it. I made it very clear that she wasn't my mom and never would be. But they wouldn't let up. Every time I called her by her first name, Robert would get pissed. He'd go on these long rants about family unity and how I was disrespecting them by not giving Laura the title of mom. I wasn't disrespecting anyone, I was just trying to hold on to the one part of my real mom that was left, her place in my life. Laura started introducing herself as Jack's mom whenever we were out in public, which was super awkward. I'd always correct her right there, saying something like, no, you're not my mom. It got uncomfortable fast, but it was like she didn't even hear me. It was like I was just some rebellious kid acting out for no reason, but in reality, I was just trying to keep some connection to the mom I actually loved. By the time I was 16, the tension in the house was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I went 2 weeks without speaking to either of them, not a word. I locked myself in my room, stayed out late, and pretty much just ignored their existence. Robert caved first. He came to me, trying to fix things, saying he just wanted us to be a family. But it felt fake, you know? It was like he wasn't even really listening to why I was upset. He just wanted the peace and quiet back. Eventually, I turned 18 and got the hell out of there, off to college. Man, I was done with them. I went low contact, only checking in when absolutely necessary. It wasn't about being petty or anything, it was about protecting myself. I just couldn't handle the fake family dynamic they were trying to push anymore. But of course, they weren't done with me, not by a long shot. After I turned 18 and left for college, I thought I was finally free of all the drama back home. I could breathe again, you know? No more of that weird family dynamic, no more having to pretend like everything was fine when it wasn't. It felt like I was starting a new chapter. But of course, things didn't stay quiet for long. I went low contact with my dad and Laura. At first, it was just a few texts here and there, maybe a call on a holiday if I felt up to it. But they didn't like that. Laura, especially, she would send these long messages, guilt-tripping me for not being more involved in family life. She'd throw in lines like, "We miss you so much, it's not the same without you." But it felt more like she just wanted to maintain control, you know? It was less about actually missing me and more about her trying to keep that fake, perfect family image. One time, I got this super cringy message from her saying, "I know you're busy, but I'm still your mom, and I'm always here for you." Still your mom? I legit threw my phone down when I read that. I was like, how many times do I need to tell this woman she's not my mom? I ignored it, but it didn't stop. Every time she messaged me, it felt like she was just trying to force herself into a role that didn't exist. It was exhausting. Now, let's fast forward to when I met Sarah, my fiancée. We met during my second year of college, and things moved pretty fast between us. She's honestly the best thing that's ever happened to me. She knew from the start that I had issues with my dad and Laura, and she was super understanding about it. She respected my boundaries, didn't push me to reconnect with them, and just let me handle things at my own pace. When we got engaged, I knew I had to tell my dad. I wasn't excited about it, but I figured it was better if he heard it from me rather than through the grapevine. I texted him the news, and, no surprise, he didn't take it well. He called me right away, sounding all shocked, like, "Why didn't you tell us you were seeing someone?" I told him that my personal life wasn't any of their business and that I didn't feel the need to keep them in the loop on every little thing. He hung up on me, and I thought, well, that's that. But of course, it wasn't. A few days later, Laura did what she does best, made it all about herself. She posted this long, over-the-top message on Facebook about how excited she was that her son was getting married. She threw in a bunch of stuff about how she couldn't wait to be a grandma and how proud she was of me for finding someone as special as Sarah. She even posted a picture of us that she somehow got her hands on, even though I never gave her any photos. I was furious. Not only did she have the nerve to call herself my mom again, but she was acting like she had any part in my life or my relationship. I commented on the post, something along the lines of, "Just to clarify, I'm not your son, and you won't be a grandma to any of my kids." I don't think I've ever hit post faster in my life. Guess what? That's when the real drama kicked off. My dad called me, absolutely raging. He was going off about how disrespectful I was, how I embarrassed Laura in front of her friends, how I was disrespecting my mother. I couldn't believe he was saying all this. I just sat there, holding the phone, wondering if he even remembered that my mom died when I was 14. So, I straight up asked him, "Who are we talking about?" Because my mom's been dead for almost a decade now. "You mean Laura, right? Because she's not my mother and never will be." That shut him up for a second. Then he launched into this whole thing about family and how we're all supposed to stick together and forgive each other and blah, blah, blah. Honestly, I was done listening at that point. I told him I didn't want to talk to him or Laura anymore and hung up. That was about 3 years ago. After that, we went into full no contact mode, no calls, no texts, no emails. It was like they disappeared from my life, and honestly, it was a relief. I felt like I could finally breathe without them constantly trying to force a relationship that wasn't there. I didn't think they'd try to come back into my life after all that. I was wrong. Fast forward to now. Sarah's about 8 months pregnant, and we're getting everything ready for the baby. We've got the nursery set up, we're picking out names, and we're just enjoying this time together. Then, out of nowhere, they show up at my house. Yeah, you read that right, my dad and Laura somehow found out where I live. I never gave them my address, and they just showed up one day, knocking on my door like everything was fine. I was in shock. I hadn't spoken to them in 3 years, and they thought it was okay to just drop by unannounced? I didn't even open the door at first. I just stared at them through the peephole, wondering what the hell they were thinking. Eventually, I opened the door, but I didn't let them in. I asked them what they wanted, And Laura started going off about how they missed me, how they wanted to rebuild our relationship before the baby was born. She had this fake smile plastered on her face the whole time, like she actually believed I'd let them back into my life after everything that happened. I told them to leave. I didn't yell or anything, just calmly said, "You need to leave." But they didn't move. My dad tried to talk to me, saying they just wanted to meet Sarah and be a part of the baby's life. I slammed the door in their faces. I wasn't about to let them back in after all the crap they pulled. Here's the worst part, they didn't take the hint. A few days later, I found out that they bought a house 5 minutes away from where I live. Yeah, they literally moved to my city, right down the street, to be closer to me and the baby. At this point, it's not just annoying, it's creepy. They think they can just force their way back into my life, like they're entitled to a relationship with me and my family. Sarah and I talked about it, and honestly, we're both freaked out. I don't know what their deal is, but it's clear they're not going to give up easily. My therapist wants me to let them in, to rebuild bridges or whatever, but I'm just not sure I can do that, not after everything they've done. After finding out that my dad and Laura had literally bought a house 5 minutes away, I thought things couldn't get worse. But of course, I underestimated them. They always find a way to crank the weirdness up to another level. About a week after they moved, I got a notification on my phone. It was from Facebook. I'm not super active on social media, but I still keep an account to stay in touch with some friends from college. Anyway, it's a tag. Laura had tagged me in another post. My first reaction was just to roll my eyes, thinking, here we go again. I figured it would be some more of her usual stuff about family or how much she misses me or whatever. But no, this time, she went full crazy mode. The post was this long essay about how excited she was to finally be near her son again and how she couldn't wait to help raise her grandbaby. There was even a picture of their new house with a caption saying, "A fresh start for our family." She kept calling herself mom throughout the post, which, let me remind you, she is not. There were also a bunch of pictures of me from my childhood. I have no idea where she even got them. They weren't on my Facebook, and I never gave her those pictures. I'm talking about baby photos, pictures of me at school, all sorts of stuff I haven't even looked at in years. The comments were wild too. It was all her friends hyping her up, saying stuff like, "Oh, it's so beautiful that you're reconnecting with your son. And you're going to be such a great grandma, Laura." It was like this whole delusional love fest. I was just sitting there, staring at my phone, absolutely dumbfounded. Sarah was sitting next to me on the couch, and I showed her the post. Her face went from confusion to anger in about 5 seconds flat. "What the hell is this?" she asked. "How is she posting all this without even talking to us?" I didn't have an answer. I mean, I didn't even know where to start. I was already pissed off, but seeing Sarah so upset made it worse. This wasn't just about me anymore, this was about our family, our baby. Laura was crossing every boundary possible, and my dad? He was nowhere to be seen, but I knew he was enabling all of it. I did what I do best when I'm pissed off, I commented. It wasn't long or anything, just straight to the point. "I don't know where you got these pictures, but I never gave them to you. You are not my mom, and you will not be involved in my child's life." Simple, right? Just a factual statement. I thought that would be the end of it, but nope, that only made things worse. Laura deleted my comment within minutes, then sent me this massive, guilt-trippy DM about how hurtful I was being, how I needed to grow up, and how she was only trying to rebuild our family for the sake of the baby. She went on and on about how I was pushing her away for no reason, how I was being cruel to my dad, and how this was going to hurt the baby in the long run. She even ended it with something like, "I'm doing this for your child's future, Jack. Don't you want them to have a loving family?" I stared at the message for a good minute before blocking her. The audacity of this woman was unreal. I hadn't talked to her in 3 years, and she still thought she had some right to dictate how I was going to raise my child? It was infuriating, but that's not where it ended, because right after I blocked her, my dad called. Of course he had to get involved. He went off, telling me I was being unreasonable, how Laura was just trying to be part of the family, how I needed to let go of the past and move forward. He said all the same stuff he's been saying for years, but this time, it felt worse. He kept pushing this idea that I was the problem, that if I just accepted Laura as my mom, everything would be fine. I lost it. I yelled into the phone, something I hadn't done in a long time. I told him that Laura was never going to be my mom, no matter how many houses they bought near me or how many fake social media posts she made. I told him that this was the last straw, that I was done with both of them, and if they kept trying to force themselves into my life, there'd be consequences. He tried to play the victim, like always, said something like, "You're tearing this family apart, Jack. Can't you see how much Laura loves you?" That set me off even more. I'm tearing this family apart? I said. I haven't even been part of the family in years. You tore it apart when you let her move in and try to replace Mom. He went quiet for a second, then he said something I'll never forget. He said, your mother's gone, Jack. Laura is here now. She's your family, and you need to get used to that. That was it for me. I hung up. I couldn't listen to any more of his crap. I was done trying to make him see reason. If he wanted to live in this delusional world where Laura was my mom, fine, but I wasn't going to be part of it. I went back to Sarah and told her everything. We sat there, just staring at each other, trying to process how far this had gone. We agreed that we needed to cut them out completely, like, no contact whatsoever. It wasn't just about protecting ourselves anymore, it was about protecting our baby. I didn't want my kid growing up with these toxic people trying to worm their way into our lives. We decided to lock down all of our social media accounts. We set everything to private, unfriended anyone who might leak information to them, and told our close friends and family to keep things on the down low. It was extreme, but at this point, we didn't have a choice. The next few days were tense. Every time there was a knock at the door, my heart would race, thinking it was them. We even bought a security system to make sure they couldn't sneak up on us. Sarah was stressed out, and it was affecting her pregnancy. I felt like crap for dragging her into this, but I didn't know what else to do. Then, just when I thought things were starting to calm down, we got another surprise. After all the social media stuff and cutting them off, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd finally get the hint and leave us alone. Sarah and I locked everything down, blocked them everywhere, and we even told my in-laws what was going on, just in case they tried to go through them. Things were tense, but I felt like we had taken the right steps to keep them out of our lives. But of course, they weren't done. I should have known better. It was a Saturday morning, and Sarah and I were having a quiet breakfast. She was 8 months pregnant at this point, so we were just trying to enjoy the calm before the storm of becoming parents, you know? Just chilling, having coffee, talking about baby names, everything was good for once. We were feeling at peace. Then there was a knock at the door. At first, I didn't think much of it. We weren't expecting anyone, but sometimes deliveries come early, or maybe it was a neighbor or something. But when I got up to check, my stomach dropped. I knew, somehow, I just knew it was them. I looked through the peephole, and there they were, my dad and Laura, standing on my front porch like they hadn't been blocked from my life for the last few weeks. I felt my heart start pounding. They had no reason to be here. I hadn't invited them, and we hadn't talked. They were not supposed to be anywhere near us. I didn't even open the door at first. I just stood there, frozen, staring at them. Sarah called from the kitchen, asking who it was, and I told her to stay put. She knew by the tone of my voice that something was wrong. I could hear her get up from the table, but I didn't want her to deal with this. She had enough stress already. So, I opened the door just a crack, enough to let them know I wasn't planning to let them in. My dad was the first to speak. "Jack, we need to talk," he said. I didn't even respond. I just stared at him, trying to hold back the urge to slam the door in his face again. Laura stood behind him, clutching a gift bag, like this was some kind of casual visit and not a complete violation of my boundaries. "Why are you here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm, though I was anything but. My dad sighed, like he was the one being inconvenienced. "We just wanted to check on you and Sarah. We know the baby's coming soon, and we wanted to be here for you." Be here for me? Are you kidding me? After everything they'd done, after all the disrespect and manipulation, now they wanted to act like they were some kind of supportive family? "I told you we're done," I said, trying to keep it together. "You have no right to be here. We don't want you involved." Laura stepped forward, holding out the gift bag like that was going to make everything better. "It's just a few things for the baby. We want to help. You don't need to push us away, Jack." I shook my head, not even looking at the bag. "Take that and leave. I don't want anything from you." That's when Laura did what she always does. She tried to guilt trip me. Her voice got all soft, and she started with the waterworks. "I just don't understand why you hate me so much," she said. "I've always tried to be there for you. I've always treated you like my own son." I almost laughed. "Treated me like your son?" I said, feeling my blood boil. "You tried to erase my mom from our lives the second you moved in. You tried to replace her, and now you're trying to act like you're this perfect grandma? You're delusional." My dad jumped in at this point, trying to calm me down, as if I was the one being irrational. "Jack, we're family. Families have disagreements, but that doesn't mean you can just cut us out. We're here because we care about you." I wasn't having it. "You don't care about me," I snapped. "If you did, you would have respected my boundaries years ago. But no, it's always about what you and Laura want." You don't get to force your way back into my life because it's convenient for you. Then I did what I should have done from the start. I told them to leave, for real this time. I'm done talking. You need to go, and don't come back. But of course, they didn't move. Laura started crying harder, and my dad just stood there, shaking his head, like he couldn't believe I was the one being unreasonable. It was like they were waiting for me to change my mind, like they could wear me down if they stood there long enough. I'd had enough. I slammed the door in their faces and locked it. I stood there for a few seconds, trying to catch my breath. I could hear them talking outside, but I didn't care what they had to say anymore. I walked back to the kitchen, and Sarah was standing there, looking worried. Are they gone? She asked. Not yet, but they will be, I said, already pulling out my phone. I called the police. I wasn't messing around anymore. They had crossed the line too many times, and this was the last straw. I told the dispatcher that my estranged father and his wife were trespassing on my property and that they refused to leave. It wasn't long before I saw the flashing lights pull up outside. I didn't go out to talk to them again. I watched through the window as the cops told them to leave. Laura tried to argue with them, of course, probably saying something about how they were just trying to see their son, but the cops weren't having it. After a few minutes of back and forth, they finally got the message and left. I felt this huge wave of relief wash over me once they were gone. It wasn't even about them leaving my house, it was about taking control back. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was actually doing something to protect my family. Later that night, Sarah and I sat down to talk. We both knew this wasn't over. My dad and Laura weren't the kind of people to give up easily, especially now that they were living so close. We had to figure out what to do next, how to protect ourselves and the baby once they were born. We talked about a restraining order, but we knew that wouldn't be easy to get without more concrete evidence of them harassing us. Still, it was something we were willing to look into. I wasn't about to let them ruin the life Sarah and I were building. I didn't want my kid growing up with toxic people trying to manipulate them, just like they did with me. I knew what I had to do to keep my family safe, even if it meant cutting out my own father for good. After the cops told them to leave, I thought maybe, just maybe, this nightmare would finally be over. I mean, when the police get involved, most people would back off, right? But no, not my dad and Laura, they're too stubborn for that. A couple of days passed, and things were quiet. Sarah and I were on edge, though. We knew that just because they were told to leave once didn't mean they were going to stop. I could feel it every time the doorbell rang or I got a notification from our security camera, my heart would race. I hated that I felt like a prisoner in my own home, waiting for the next thing they'd try. Then, just when things seemed to calm down, I got a letter in the mail. It was from a lawyer, their lawyer. I almost laughed when I opened it. I was half expecting a restraining order or something, but nope, it was a letter requesting mediation. Mediation? Are you serious? According to the letter, my dad and Laura wanted to sit down with me and Sarah to resolve our family conflict in a calm and civil environment. I couldn't believe it. They had the nerve to go through a lawyer to try and force us into some kind of sit down, like we were on a bad reality show. The lawyer's letter made it sound like I was the problem, like I was the one who had cut them off without reason, and now it was time to make amends. I showed the letter to Sarah, and she just shook her head. What do they think this is, some kind of intervention? She said. I guess they think they can guilt us into sitting down with them, I replied. But there's no way I'm doing that. We sat down and talked about it. I wasn't about to give in to their demands. They didn't get to dictate how I handled my life, and they sure as hell weren't going to force me into some fake mediation session where they could play victim. But we knew we couldn't just ignore the letter, we needed to handle this the right way, legally. So, we contacted our own lawyer. I wanted to be sure that whatever we did, we had a clear plan in place. Our lawyer told us that mediation wasn't something we could be forced into, it was just a request, and we had every right to decline. But he also suggested that we consider going for a restraining order, given everything that had happened so far. I was all for it. I wanted to put a stop to this once and for all. The process wasn't easy, though. Restraining orders aren't just handed out. We needed evidence that they were harassing us, and the visit from the police helped, but it wasn't enough on its own. That's when our lawyer suggested something that made my skin crawl. He said we might need to let them make another move, not anything dangerous, but something that would show a clear pattern of harassment. I hated the idea. The last thing I wanted was to sit around and wait for them to show up again, but it was the best option we had if we wanted to get the restraining order in place. Like clockwork, they didn't disappoint. About a week later, Sarah and I were in the middle of setting up the nursery. We were hanging up some decorations, organizing baby clothes, when we heard the doorbell ring. My heart sank. I knew exactly who it was before I even looked at the camera. Sure enough, there they were, My dad and Laura, standing at the front door, holding more gifts. I couldn't believe it. After everything that had happened, they were back, acting like nothing was wrong. I grabbed my phone, ready to call the cops again, but Sarah stopped me. "Let's record this," she said. "Our lawyer needs more evidence, right? This is it." I hated that she was right. I didn't want to deal with them anymore, but we needed to handle this the right way. I opened the door just enough for the camera to catch everything but not enough to let them in. "What do you want?" I asked, keeping my voice as steady as I could. My dad spoke first, of course. "Jack, we just wanted to drop off some things for the baby. We thought maybe we could talk, clear the air." I looked at the pile of gifts in his arms and felt my blood boil. "I don't want anything from you," I said. "I told you to leave us alone." Laura jumped in, trying to do her usual routine. "We're not trying to cause trouble. We just want to be part of your life. You can't keep pushing us away, Jack." "Yes, I can," I shot back, "and I will. You're not part of my life. You're not part of Sarah's life, and you're sure as hell not going to be part of my kid's life." My dad's face went red. He was trying to keep it together, but I could tell he was angry. "You're being unreasonable, Jack. We're your family." "No, you're not," I said, feeling the weight of my words. "My family is inside this house. My family is Sarah and our baby. You're just people I used to know." Laura started crying again, but I didn't care. I was done feeling guilty, done feeling like I was the one who had to fix everything. They had pushed, and now they were getting what they deserved, nothing. "I'm calling the police," I said, pulling out my phone. "You need to leave now." They didn't argue this time. My dad muttered something under his breath, and they finally turned around and left. I stood there, watching them walk back to their car, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had control again. We sent the video to our lawyer, who said it was exactly what we needed. Within a few days, we had the paperwork ready, and the restraining order was filed. It wasn't an instant solution, but it was a step in the right direction. In the end, I realized something important. It wasn't just about protecting myself from them, it was about protecting my family. Sarah, our baby, they were my priority now. My dad and Laura could keep playing their games, but they weren't going to drag us into their mess anymore. The restraining order might not stop them forever, but at least now we had the law on our side. For the first time in years, I felt like I was doing the right thing. For me, for Sarah, and for the baby we were about to bring into the world. I don't know what they'll try next, but whatever it is, we'll be ready. This time, I'm not backing down.